Well, hello and welcome to Sarah Says Daily Brief. Happy Monday. Today, as promised, I am talking about some of the things that I think we do as parents to hold our girls back. Some of the things we were taught, some of the things that we inadvertently teach our daughters, some of the things that we are consciously or not consciously teaching the young women in our life. And, all or none of these may apply to you. I don't think that if they do apply to you, it makes you a bad parent. I don't need any of you stressing out that I'm criticizing your parenting skills. I am certainly not the poster child for great motherhood here. But what I am wanting you to embrace is the concept that in order for things to be different for women, we have to hit both ends of the spectrum. We've got to change our behavior as adult women, but we also have to help young women change their behavior as well. And the only way that's going to happen is when we start evaluating what's going on. And so the first thing, and it's a huge deal for me, is the concept of nice. That we're teaching young women, and we were taught all about nice. I'm not saying that we're not polite. I'm not saying that we're not respectful. I'm certainly not saying that we want to raise children that are not well behaved, but what we're doing is that we're teaching our daughters to be likable, to be nice, and that if they don't feel like they like somebody, that's okay. I think we're also in this niceness that we're teaching our young girls is that they're not developing the capacity to say no. And that is a hugely powerful thing for them to be able to say no. The other thing, this could mean for their future that they develop the mindset that I've talked about on many occasions, that because they're being nice, because they don't want to be aggressive, because they don't want to be pushy, they're not going to press for that raise. They're not going to push their thoughts forward in meetings. They want to avoid being called a bad name, which Facebook will not let me say, or my live video will be canned. This mindset, though, can definitely be a factor that holds girls back. The second thing is buying gender-specific toys. Again, I am not saying that we don't want to buy girls' dolls and boys' army things, but when our children want toys that we have historically been thought to apply, the soldiers are for boys, the science sets are for boys, the Tinker toys are for boys. And now we're moving in the right direction, but we have to be so very careful that we're not supporting this as parents, because girl toys tend to be all about appearance and tasks around the house. And boy toys tend to be more about science and math and spatial differences and things like that. Boy toys tend to encourage invention. They tend to encourage problem solving. We've got to just remember that this isn't like good or bad. This is just, if we aren't aware, these are the things that are going to be outcomes. I would say, the action item here is to try and avoid always walking down the Barbie aisle when you're with your daughters or granddaughters. Let them go down the boy aisle and see if there are toys that they may want there. I think that we want to encourage scientific discovery. We want to encourage girls to be better competitors. We want to encourage girls to have better understanding of spatial differences in math and things. But it's not magic. It starts with how they're socialized. I think the third thing that we do without even thinking about it is that we're constantly telling girls how pretty they are. Of course, we want to tell them that, and that's part of something I want to be talking about today, but it would be really nice if we also told them how smart they were. If we also told them how, they're talented they are. We, again, have got to break some cycles of how we were raised and what we were taught. And so, we live in a hugely appearance-driven culture. And if we don't break away from the concept that we're telling our girls how pretty they are versus telling them how smart they are, or how we're telling them how nice they are versus how great they are at problem solving or competing or whatever. Their self-worth is totally built around how they look. The other thing, and this is a big controversial thing, and I'm not trying to start any trouble, but we can't indoctrinate our girls into the princess cult of being rescued all the time. And it's difficult to avoid a lot of the media where the girls get saved by the handsome prince. And that I will say Disney's moving in the right direction in terms of having the girls save themselves, or the girls are saving the guys. But there is this princess mentality. I love pink. I like sitting on a pedestal every now and then, and I like, being rescued. But if we are raised with the concept that that's the only solution, then we're raising a bunch of princesses, and we've got to change that thinking in terms of how women can save themselves. And, the princess culture, I think, encourages women to be damsels in distress. I think the princess culture encourages women to be looking for someone to fix things. I mean, think about how we older women are still, in my mind, in the mentality of we have to go to daddy the politician and ask him to vote a certain way because we didn't run for office, because we're not wanting to get our feelings hurt in the vicious political arena. We want to be saved. We're looking for legislation to fix the wage disparity when 90-some% of women in HR are already in the place and already have the power and access to information to begin to influence how that can move forward. The next thing is around the house, pink jobs versus blue jobs. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all about, predispositions, who's doing what, but when we're socializing our girls, oh no, that's daddy's job. Well, what if we were to let the daughter learn how to fix things, or let the daughter try to do heavy lifting? I mean, again, this isn't anti-man. I had somebody make a comment this week about my pro-woman stuff made them think I was a man-hater. I don't think anything could be farther from the truth, and you knew me, you're probably laughing in your chair right now. This isn't about men at all. This is about girls and women, and helping us convert our thinking from what was to what needs to be. I think it's important for parents to consciously challenge gender-specific things. Girls could be mechanics. Girls could learn to wire electricity. Girls could learn to help build that new addition to your house. I mean, we've really just, if a girl doesn't want to, great. If a guy wants to, I mean, let's just start getting away from the pink tasks and the blue tasks and figure out who has a predisposition and a propensity and skill set for doing what. I think that it's important to demonstrate for our daughters that girls can do what they like. And if that's handling the money, if that's wiring the electricity, if that's doing the yard work, whatever. We're hurting our daughters by doing some of these things. Also, the next thing is how we socialize our daughters, that they only play with other girls, that we're not helping them. Socially, men and women interact differently. Boys are more competitive. Boys let things tend to, argue and forget. Girls socialize differently, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that, but I think that if we don't let our daughters socialize with guys more as young girls, they aren't going to learn some pretty important skills. Boys can compete against one another without hating each other's guts. Boys can collaborate in teams. There are just some social skills that some of them are hardwired even. And I think that we we set our girls up for failure when we don't think about some of the things that we do as parents. And I did all these things. I'm just saying, I did all these things. And in order for things to change, we have to change. So I think if, we have to encourage our girls to begin to learn to work with boys, to be on sports teams with boys, to collaborate in work groups with boys. I think it helps. I have about 4 more things. Today I've been talking about how we're sabotaging our daughters for success and perpetrating this cycle of how we think. Stop criticizing your body in front of your daughter. We want our kids to have self-acceptance. We particularly want our girls to love themselves and love their bodies, and they learn from you. And, your mom standing in front of the mirror talking about how fat and ugly you are, well, then you've socialized that as normal for your daughter. You've essentially said, this is how we treat ourselves. And so, if you're always talking in front of your daughter about how you have to lose a few pounds, how you're always on a diet, how you hate your body shape, or whatever it is, you're teaching her how to think about herself. And so I would just say to you, stop it immediately and begin to focus on being healthy. You know what? I'd like to go for a walk just because I want to build up my stamina. You are helping her learn self-appreciation, self-worth, or self-depreciation. She's going to think it's okay and normal to look at her body and hate herself. And that's not okay. A few other things real quick. How do you talk about other women in front of your daughter? I'm huge on this mean girl culture, but if your daughter hears you talking about that bee down the street, or how much you hate your coworker, you're teaching her how to deal with other women. Oh, well, she got that raise. Wonder who she slept with. Again, all these conversations that we have in front of our children about other women, and then we're surprised that they're mean at school. I mean, it's natural in many cases, the whole competitive nature of the human species, but how are you talking about other women in front of your child? How well do you work with other women? How well does your daughter see you collaborating with other women? Most strong women I know would rather work with men. And why is that? Because we don't play well with one another. And our daughters see that. And so if we want things to change, we have to change. And the last thing, and I'm going to be talking about this again later this week, is stop talking bad about men. Stop making men the enemy. Men are not the enemy. Yes, men perpetrate domestic violence and some other things, but so do women. A lot of men in political office that are doing things that we don't like. Well, FFS girls, let's run for office. We're blaming men for things over which we have way more control than we are accepting responsibility for. Stop blaming men. Daphne, good morning. I'm glad you believe in self-worth. We have to teach that to our daughters. Well said. So to summarize, I went over 10 things, and just quickly, for those of you who may have come in late, it would be worth you going back over, but let's be careful what we're teaching our girls about the nice, being nice. Not, they don't learn how to say no. Let's be aware of buying gender-specific toys. Let's be cautious about always telling our daughters how pretty they are versus how smart they are. Be aware of the princess cult and what you're teaching your child, your daughter, about granddaughter, niece, next door neighbor's daughter, about how we can save ourselves. Be aware of physical tasks, how they socialize with other boys, and what we're teaching them about their body. And finally, I can't say it enough because it just seems to be way too pervasive. We absolutely have to stop bad-mouthing men. It's just not the answer. We are so powerful, so powerful. And when we take that power in our hands, when we begin to teach our daughters to take that power in their hands, when we begin to reach inside of us and clean out all the garbage that's accumulated over years of socialization and media poisoning and just the world, there is no limit as to what we can accomplish. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much for your thoughts and ideas. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And if you have ideas for a topic or a question that you'd like for me to answer, just let me know. And until we get together again, my friends, you have been zinced.